We all know the cliche fairy tale about a young girl being whisked away to a magical land of wonder. They typically embark on an adventure-filled quest until they finally make it back to their world. But what if that little girl was so bad at questing that she got stuck there? And what if she actually hated this joyful world of sunshine and rainbows? Well, let me introduce you to Gertrude. Once a little girl, she's now been stuck in Fairyland for 27 years. Though her body is still the same, she has lost her mind along the way, becoming a psychotic nightmare and committing all manner of atrocities on the people of Fairyland, who, according to the rules of the world, can't harm her. What happens when you unleash an unhinged killer into a fairy tale world that she despises? Well, let's find out. Hello friends, this is Grief speaking, and today we're looking at I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young. This one's been on my list for a while, and if you like hilariously twisted comics, I think you'll really enjoy it. It's not straight up horror, but there is some really disturbing scenarios, and Gertrude is really a full-blown psychopath. It's that classic mashup of cute and cuddly creatures being subjected to horrific violence, which has kind of become a staple of this channel at this point. Anyway, let's get right into it. This is I Hate Fairyland Explained. Issue number 1. This story begins like many other fairy tales. An innocent girl named Gertrude wished she could be taken away to an amazing world filled with wonder and magic and laughter and joy. And it looks like she got her wish, as her room began spinning and a hole opened in the floor. A comical juxtaposition begins at this point as the narration describes what's happening in a fairy tale style, while in reality Gertrude was terrified and crying for her parents as she's sucked into a hole in the floor. She falls into a dark abyss and then to an amazing world filled with wonder and magic and laughter and joy. However, Gertrude is actually screaming that she doesn't want to die over and over as she rockets toward the ground with her eyes nearly popping out of her head. She lands headfirst into the hard pavement in Fairyland, where she's greeted by all manner of fairy tale creatures while blood pours from her face. She's then introduced to the queen, Claudia, who explains that there's a door back to the real world, but Gertrude must find a key to unlock it. It's kind of brutal. As the queen explains this, Gertrude is still bloody from the fall and has a bone sticking out of her arm. The girl's gifted with a talking insect creature named Larrigan Winsworth III to assist her and a map to all the known lands. With everything she needs, her adventure begins. It then hard cuts to our narrator, a giant talking moon, who says that that was 27 years ago. Gertrude is floating by in a magical boat, arguing with Larrigan, or Larry for short, about where they went wrong this time while looking at the map. Despite all the years going by, Gertrude still looks like a little girl, although a clearly deranged one. She cusses out Larry, but you can't really cuss in Fairyland, so instead it's replaced with cute words like fluff you and fluff this map. The sweet young girl who was once filled with hope and joy has been taken over by hate and misery from being stuck in this world for so long. She even interrupts the moon as he narrates and flips him off, saying she can hear everything he's saying. And if he keeps it up, she threatens to shoot him in the face. The moon can't believe she's addressing him like this. He's the high teller in the Guild of Narrators, a position that should be respected. Gertrude, proving how much of a psycho she's become, pulls out a handheld cannon and shoots at the moon, exploding his head into a gory mess of blood, brains, and eyeballs. Holy shit. It seems like this isn't the first time she's pulled something like this too, as Larry doesn't seem fazed at all and mentions that she won't get away with it with all the witnesses around. Along with the moon, there are dozens of stars in the sky who are all horrified at what they just saw. Realizing Larry's right, Gertrude smiles and tells him to drive while she shoots. And using a minigun-like cannon contraption, she begins firing wildly into the sky, ripping the stars to pieces in a beautiful display of pure violence. As the last star falls dead, Gert and Larry decide to stop in at Las Fungus to grab some food and gamble. Meanwhile, at Queen Claudia's castle, she's blown away by the unprecedented number of shooting stars in the sky. That is, until one of the star's corpses lands on her face, followed by several others that splat onto the castle. One of the stars is barely hanging on to life and tells the queen who did this. With star blood smeared across her face, the queen is seething at the name of Gertrude, who has apparently been a thorn in her side since she showed up all those years ago. Unfortunately, due to the rules of Fairyland pertaining to guests, the queen can't harm Gertrude in any way. However, that doesn't mean that she can't hypothetically suggest that someone who does harm her get a generous reward of riches for doing so. It cuts to a little hut somewhere in Fairyland that's littered with bones, namely skulls of various creatures. Inside, a large barbarian man who looks to have just recently murdered a unicorn picks up his phone, where he gets a vaguely worded request from the queen. Elsewhere in Las Fungus, Larry steps out from shopping to see chaos erupt as Gertrude has decided to rob a bank. The city's police, little men with mushroom heads, chase after her and are particularly pissed at Gert's suggestion that they look like penises. Using an electric frog, they tase the little brat and bring her in to their leader, a giant gangster slug who seems to be a nod to Jabba the Hutt. He says that for her evil deeds she shall be put to work in the dung mines, unless she can solve a riddle. After so many years of this crap, Gert is tired of riddles, but is forced to listen anyway as the slug rattles off an extremely long and complicated riddle that honestly seems like nonsense. One thing that's pretty cool just as an artistic decision was to take several words from the riddle and give them each a different unique font. It looks pretty cool. To the slug's surprise, Gertrude actually thinks she has the answer and asks the big guy to come closer so she can tell him. Of course, she just uses this as an opportunity to grab his chain necklace and try to choke him with it. Another Jabba reference. Two of the penis guards, mushroom guards, grab her before she can choke him out, and the great slug tells his men to kill her. Well, Gertrude's got other plans. 2 kittles of a Jilk's breath later, she's not just killing the mushroom men, but eating them alive. Yeah, she's pulling their brains out and chomping on them. This chick is completely twisted, but I'm all here for it. The slug then brings in dozens more to attack her, and she realizes there's no way she can fight them all. Instead, she runs to a nearby window and jumps out from the top floor. It seems Larry has been through this sort of thing a number of times and has a flying pig waiting outside for her to land on. It's a pretty clean getaway. The only problem is the mushroom men that Gertrude ate have hallucinogenic effects, and well, to put it bluntly, she's tripping balls. As they fly over several fairy tale structures and landmarks, Gertrude won't shut up the whole time, blah 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 blah, until finally the pig can't take it and drops her off his back, revealing that this wasn't just mock dialogue. Gertrude was literally just screaming blah 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 for miles. Okay, that's pretty funny. Well, she lands near Ice Cream Island, and they swim to shore to take a breather, where Gert pukes all over the place. Feeling a little better after throwing up, she asks for the map to look it over. I should point out that Larry wears a magical top hat that can hold seemingly infinite items inside despite their size. As the two discuss their next location to search for the key, they hear a booming voice and turn to see a massive jacked out barbarian step toward them. He's got 8 swords on his back, weirdly pointy nipples, and says that he's here to kill her. Just a little note, but if you look in the background here, you can see the moon from earlier is still alive. He's got bandages all over, and now he's just a crescent moon, which is pretty funny. But that wraps up issue 1. Issue 2. This one starts with a new narrator, a wise old mouse who must take on the job after his friend Mr. Moon was severely injured. He's happy to tell the tale until he realizes whose story he's narrating. The mouse practically breaks into tears and says he has a family for God's sake, but he's a professional and the story must be told. He starts in, once upon a time, there was a girl named Gertrude. Just as he says her name, he's smashed by a mug of beer by the girl herself. With the guts of the mouse stuck to the bottom of her mug, Gertrude is rambling drunk about the elusive key that she must find. She's saying all of this to the disembodied head of the warrior from the end of the last issue. It's safe to say she easily dispatched the hulking man. It's kind of disturbing. She works the severed head like a puppet to have a conversation with it. The bear behind the counter thinks that she's had too much to drink and tells her it's time to settle up her tab, but she just says, "Joke's on you, I don't have any money," and uses the head to try and hit on a frog warrior sitting next to her, hoping to turn him into a prince. Larry reminds her that she still looks like an 8-year-old and maybe shouldn't be hitting on grown men. This sends her into a rant about how terrible it is to be 37 years old and stuck in the body of a beautiful child. She wishes she could just be normal for a day. Suddenly, there's a puff of smoke, and Gertrude transforms. Larry says, "Fudge my life," as he looks at the monstrosity before him. Gertrude is now huge, swelled up and veiny with bulging bags around her eyes. It's really off-putting. The bartender then explains that she was drinking Wisher's Ale, which grants a wish to whoever drinks it. She wished to be normal, and given the fact that she's been on a Fairyland diet her whole life, which is basically just sugar, sugar, and more sugar, her normal seems to be a walking type 19 diabetic tumor. Larry says that on the bright side, maybe the Frog Knight thinks it's kinda hot, and he's met with a tumor-sized punch by Gert. Back at Claudia's castle, she's informed that her hired killer failed. She's pissed off and is forced to find a new solution. Entering a dark room of the castle, she pulls out a green crystal ball. Somewhere near the Bog of Madness, an ugly witch named Horabella is trying to finish up a potion when she's interrupted by a call on her crystal ball. It's Queen Claudia. She tries to sweet-talk the witch, but Horabella cuts through the shrag and asks what she wants. So Claudia asks for her to kill Gertrude, and the witch is happy to do it. She hops on her motorcycle like Broomstick and heads off to Gertrude's known location. After a night of travel, the witch arrives in Fawn's Valley and believes this will be Gertrude's next stop. She finds an adorable fawn playing his flute and offers him an apple, which he gladly eats. After one bite, the fawn is immediately transformed into a zombie, and the apple is revealed to have been cursed brains disguised with magic. The next day, Gertrude and Larry seem to be traveling through a blood-filled swamp, and Larry shouts out in excitement that he's found it. Assuming he means the key, Gert nearly cries tears of joy. Finally, she can leave this place. But it turns out he was only talking about his lighter that he dropped in the swamp. After Gert flips him off, they climb out of the swamp, which turns out to be the innards of a giant. In fact, it looks like Gertrude has killed all the giggle giants of the area, as their corpses are strewn about the forest with massive holes in their chests. This is a good indication of why Gertrude's been here for so long. Why the hell would she think the magical key would be in the guts of a giant? Anyway, they move along on their path into Fawn Valley, and eventually come upon the half-eaten brain sitting in the road. Larry sees this as a bad omen, but the psychotic Gertrude thinks nothing of it. As night falls, they continue into Fawn Village, which is eerily empty and filled with fog. Once again, Gert sees nothing wrong with this and barges into the local tavern. Inside are several zombie fawns eating the remains of a corpse. After a rather fitting Fawn of the Dead pun, Gertrude requests her new toy from Larry's magic hat, the axe of the huntsman she killed. With a smile on her face, she wields it and asks which zombie wants to try and eat her first. This leads to a gory montage of her slicing up the zombies with glee. Leaving only their severed bodies behind, she strolls outside saying it's gonna take more than a few rotting fawns to ruin her day. She looks up, however, to see dozens more waiting outside. She's still pretty confident, but in a zoom out, we see that there are actually hundreds of them swarming the village. The issue ends with Gertrude exclaiming, "Muffin fluffer," as the horde set in. Issue number 3. As usual, our story continues by a member of the Narrators Guild. He's a bit distracted as we see blood spraying onto the page, but nevertheless the story must be told. However, as the narrator begins the tale, he's killed by an axe through the head. Of course, this is Gertrude who, in the midst of murdering zombie fawns, accidentally dropped the poor bastard. She doesn't pay the man much mind and instead starts singing badly about her victory of the zombies that are piled up in a mess of body parts behind her. Larry compliments her axe skills, but worries that since they're undead, they could just come back to life again. It's a good point, and she asks if he's still got the scorchling they captured. Larry then pulls off his hat and a massive fire-breathing dragon pops out, setting the whole village, along with the zombie corpses, ablaze. Gertrude takes the opportunity to do a slow-motion cool guy walk away from the flames. Back at Queen Claudia's castle, she's scolding Horabella for not being able to kill one little girl. The queen declares that she'll have to take this to the highest level. She transports herself to a massive talking tree and requests to see the Council of Elders. After a comical back and forth, she finally jumps into the tree's mouth where she finds the chamber of Fairyland's Council of Elders, the most powerful and respected creatures of the land. Claudia tells them she's here to discuss a problem that has plagued their lands for far too long. Gertrude. They don't like the girl either, but the mystical elders say there's nothing to discuss. The rules are clear. She'll continue to quest until she finds the key and opens the door. Well, the fact that it's been 27 years makes Claudia think that there should have been some kind of escape clause written in. She proposes a new plan that would technically fall within the rules, but still solve their problem. What if they invite a new child to Fairyland? And if this guest gets to the key first, then Gertrude will permanently become a resident of Fairyland. No longer a guest, she could then be harmed by the queen. Everyone agrees, and it looks like the new plan will be put into motion. Meanwhile, Gertrude is getting herself into trouble again. It looks like she's broken the horn off of a centaur who is now wildly firing arrows at her. She tries to escape across a bridge made of a fallen tree, but it snaps, sending her crashing to the ground below. Larry flies down to check on her, but she's knocked out cold. There's then a pretty funny montage of Larry waiting for her her to wake up. He builds a house to live in as winter comes and passes, and then adds an addition when he gets married and has kids. All the while, Gertrude is still unconscious. Eventually, Larry's new wife and kids leave him because of his alcohol issues, and in a drunken rage, he burns his house down. At the same time, Gertrude is slowly growing a beard, which comically grows in looking like her curly green hair. Finally, after who knows how much time, she wakes up to the sound of joyful singing. She looks up to see a cute little girl named Happy, who has her own little insect companion named Miss Lady, and as Larry shaves Gertrude's face, Happy explains that she's from Wisconsin, and now she's on a quest to find a key to get back to the human world. Gertrude assumes that Happy must have been here for a while if she's already made it this far on the quest, and the girl agrees, she's been here a whole day already. Happy doesn't mind though, and considers herself lucky to spend so much time in such a wonderful place. This enrages Gert, who starts interrogating the girl on how she got this far. This eventually ends with Gert pulling out her axe and attacking her. Happy just laughs and calls her a silly goose, then shoots a massive rainbow blast that sends Gertrude flying backwards, crashing through dozens of trees like it's Dragon Ball Z or something. Happy just giggles and says bye before skipping away on her quest. It looks like the Queen's plan is going swimmingly. Larry gets rejected by Miss Lady and then goes to check on Gertrude. He knows she's going to be pissed about getting beaten up by a girl who shoots rainbows, but at least she's not dead. However, when he finally comes upon her body, she sure looks that way. There's a branch going through her head, one of her eyeballs are hanging out, her arm and leg have broken off, and her guts are in her lap. And that's the end of issue 3. Issue number 4. As usual, the issue opens with a new narrator, a smiling slug creature. This time, it's not Gertrude, but Larry that dispatches the little guy. The slug says though Gertrude seemed down for the count, she's actually alive. And for whatever reason, the drunken Larry just shoots him through the head. Gertrude stands up. She's still kicking despite her completely mangled body, and Larry blows some kind of magical smoke around her that seems to restore her back to normal. She's completely livid at what Happy did to her and decides it's time she had a chat with an old friend. Larry pulls out a magical mirror that Gert climbs through, and next we see Queen Claudia at her castle getting her hair done. After looking at a few options, a hand reaches out of the stylus mirror and pulls the queen in. I guess Gertrude's mirror leads to some kind of in-between world that connects to all other mirrors. She pulls the queen into this world for a talk. Larry's got a gun to her head, and Gertrude asks her why there's some tart from her world trying to kill her with rainbows. Of course, Claudia knows she means Happy, and suggests that she must be close to finding the key. After all, Gertrude's clearly not good at this questing thing. Gert tries to defend herself. She says she's on the edge of a riddle-induced psychotic break and a diabetic coma, and her days are filled with endless amounts of bright colors no human eye should ever see. After a snide back and forth and Gertrude threatening to kill the queen, Claudia finally snaps, batting the gun out of Larry's hand and grabbing Gertrude. Her cloud-like hair takes on the shape of a storm, and she says that she's not one to be trifled with. Gertrude just says her breath is brutal, prompting the queen to finally attack her with her magic. Of course, due to the rules of Fairyland, she can't harm Gertrude in any way, and so her magic does nothing. Claudia regains her composure and says that Gertrude won't be a guest here for long. What if Happy gets the key first? With a smile, she teleports away, leaving Gert to wonder what she means. Larry looks through the laws of Fairyland and reads a passage. In case of multiple guests, the human who reaches the key first will be allowed to return to their world. The remaining guest will become a citizen of Fairyland, where they will stay forever. Gertrude pieces it all together. If Happy gets out first, the queen can then kill the fluff out of her whenever she wants. She needs to get the key first, but how? Larry says she'd have to do something impossible, like wield the power of one of the 7 evil dooms. With a sinister smile, Gertrude says that's the best idea he's ever had. They should still have time. After all, Happy is new here, and it can't be that easy for her. Elsewhere, we see Happy easily completing task after task on her way to the key, like breaking curses, riding on the back of frost giants, helping the people of Pelopolis by sewing the button eye back on their queen, and so on. Happy's moving through it all with a smile on her face and in record time. Meanwhile, Gert and Larry travel through the forest of doomed trees, and she says it's probably just a scary name to keep people away. She bets there's nothing but harmless squirrels and cute chipmunks in here. Well, there are squirrels, but they're vicious, evil creatures, and Gertrude says, "Don't say a word, Larry," as she slices the creatures to bits. This is followed by hordes of demonic chipmunks swarming them next. After the forest, they must walk through the bawling fields, which is filled with crying babies. Next is scaling the peaks of snoring snotties. giant heads with massive amounts of mucus pouring out of their noses and forming snot-covered mountains. Finally, they cross the Red Sea and come upon a dark castle atop a massive skull. This is where they'll find one of the 7 evil dooms. After climbing some insanely steep steps to the castle gate, they're met with a goblin guard named Skullkill the Bloodbringer, who warns the putrid child to turn back or face his wrath. She feigns fear for a moment, but then smiles like a psycho and easily kills the goblin with his own axe. Larry tries to warn Gertrude one last time that this is a bad idea, but she ignores him and enters the castle. Just seeing what's inside actually brings a smile to Gert's face. It's a huge chamber filled with thousands of skulls, some of which form into a throne that a dark overlord sits upon. He addresses Gertrude by name and introduces himself as Darketh Deadeth. She wonders how he knows her name, and he says that he knows everything and has been watching her. This means he must know all about Happy, and Gert wastes no time asking if she can borrow his evil powers to smash the little girl's eyes into dough. Surprisingly, Darketh Deadeth says that she can have his powers, with one small caveat. He sets her down on the ground, which starts cracking beneath her, and says that she must make her way through his dungeon to prove herself worthy. The floor then gives way, and Gertrude flips the Dark Lord off as she falls into the flaming dungeons below and smashes into the ground. Here she's greeted by a small smiling creature who's actually kind of a disappointing enemy considering the dramatic setup. However, it zooms out and we find that this is only the real creature's tongue. In reality, there's a massive red demon with many eyes. And that finishes up issue 4. Issue number 5. This issue begins as usual with another narration, but this one isn't so quickly interrupted. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Happy, who was on a grand adventure in the wonderful world of Fairyland. She traveled across the plains of time and under the jelly seas, helping the trolls of Bridgetopia retrieve their trinkets and finding lost love for the syrup orcs in the Pancake Caves. Finally, she had reached the treasure, a bright and shining key. Upon touching it, the girl would be transported to the sacred door. So Happy gladly took the key in her hand, and in a flash of lightning, she was teleported back to where she first arrived in Fairyland. And here she was greeted by all its magical inhabitants who have gathered to tell her goodbye. Of course, the most pleased is Queen Claudia, who hugs the girl and sends her toward the door. The girl begins to put the key in, but then stops and remembers she needs to say goodbye to Miss Lady before she goes. You can see the queen get visibly impatient and tries to rush the girl to leave before anything goes wrong, but then a massive sound can be heard from underground. Once again, Queen Claudia tells the girl to hurry and leave, and even the son, who is narrating the story, is confused about what's going on. Queen Claudia hilariously addresses the narrator and yells at the son to keep telling the story, especially the part where Happy goes through the door. However, the rumbling grows louder, and finally a huge dragon comes up from the earth and spews hot green flames that shoot through the air and straight up explode the son's head in a gory mess. I guess we should have saw that coming, since every narrator in this story is doomed to a horrible death. Well, the son's guts all fall to the ground, covering the queen and Happy in blood and turning the sky dark. Everyone is terrified as Gertrude appears, riding the dragon and saying, "What's up, muffin fluffers?" What can I say? She knows how to make an entrance. Happy is, well, not happy about this and says it's time Gertrude is taught a lesson. She charges up her rainbow attack, but the dragon scares her stiff with his fiery eyes and blows green gas on Happy. Gertrude says that Happy caught her by surprise before, but now she's a little more prepared. Queen Claudia screams at her, saying that this breaks all the rules of Fairyland. How did she get such powers? The dragon then turns into a smoke which is consumed by Gertrude, and her eyes glow green. She simply says, "I just dropped by the lands of Nott and asked my old pal Dark Deadeth for a little help." In a flashback, we see a montage of her traveling through the castle dungeons, defeating boss after boss. In a particularly gruesome image, she jumps through a creature's chest and rips its heart out. In the end, she defeated the final boss by using its own massive sword to impale it. Dark Deadeth can't believe this little girl dared to enter his domain and slaughtered all of his hordes. She's like the daughter he never had, and he gives her a hug before allowing her to use his powers. Green, fiery energy surrounds Gertrude and then enters her body, giving her unthinkable evil powers. And that brings us back to the present. Standing with a sinister smile, she demands Happy give up the key, but the girl refuses. She says that she's learned some new tricks herself and starts charging up a huge rainbow attack. She releases it, and a wave of rainbow energy full of everything cute and cuddly charges toward Gertrude. In a pretty shocking turn of events, Gertrude opens her mouth and just swallows the sunshine blast. Happy stands there with her jaw dropped, and Gertrude says it's her turn. She fires her green energy at the ground, which opens up a pit that Happy falls into, and it closes up, crushing the poor girl, leaving only the key behind. Finally, after decades of searching, Gertrude has the key to the door and her ticket out of here. She unlocks the door, which opens with glowing light, and tears fill her eyes. She's finally going home. Just as she's about to walk through, Queen Claudia comes up to make a snide remark, saying it's too bad her goodbye doesn't contain more death. Gert says that, for once, the queen makes a good point. Larry tries to stop her, but she can't resist, and turns around using her newfound powers to completely obliterate Claudia in an awesome display. For once, Larry reacts with more than apathy and says that she should not have done that. There's pure horror in his eyes. Gertrude just laughs at the smoldering pile that used to be Queen Claudia, when suddenly the door slams shut behind her and the key vanishes. She panics and grabs Larry, asking him what the fluff is going on, and he regretfully reads from the laws of Fairyland once again. Upon the death of the king or queen, the one who deals the fatal blow must take up the crown and become the Queen of Fairyland. On the final page, Gertrude sits on a throne, sporting the queen's crown. That's right, after all that, she's still stuck here, and now she must rule the place that she hates so much. It's a great concept, and I love stories where the villain is the main character. Gertrude is pretty unhinged with no moral compass, and yet I find myself rooting for her. It kind of reminds me of Sam from Beneath the Trees. But anyway, this is a great stopping point as you get a full start and end to a story, but this series actually keeps going. With this original run having 20 issues, I'd love to find out what kind of place Fairyland turns into with a psycho like Gertrude in charge. So let me know if you want me to cover more of this series, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in general in the comments. Shout out to Kill Me Katie, as always, for the intro and outro music, which is likely playing right now, and if you want to see your art at the end of my videos, email me a submission to the address below with the name or social media handle. But I appreciate you guys watching at all. This is Grief speaking. Goodbye, friends.